Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Writer's Bridge. I am Allison K. Williams. My co-host is Ashley Renard. We are so delighted to have you all here today to talk about writing platform. And in particular, we're going to talk about setting yourself up with your comp authors and how that is going to help you grow your own audience, as well as positioning yourself for blurbs later on. A couple of quick housekeeping things before we get started. Ashley is getting ready to open up members only content connected to her TikTok and her Instagram and her book. If you're interested in that, there was a link in the email that got your Zoom link to you today. There's a link in there for you to find out more about that. And I am teaching a webinar on developmental editing through Jane Friedman about basically how to build a developmental editing business. What is developmental editing? How do you do it? How do you communicate with clients? And how do you make money doing all of that? We also want to remind you guys, we call this the Writer's Bridge because a platform is a thing you stand up on and yell at people from, whereas a bridge is a two-way street where you communicate with your readers and your readers communicate right back with you. As always, we plan to cover a lot. #firehose me. So do plan to watch the video again, even if you're here live. We are great company when you are doing the dishes, when you are vacuuming, or when you are relaxing on the couch eating grapes while your children and husband are doing dishes and vacuuming for you. We fully support that plan. We have a question of the week. Claudine asks, how long should you expect to wait for agent comments on a new manuscript? I've been waiting for 6 months for my agent to comment on my novel. Is every agent swamped right now? Yes. Yes, they are all swamped. Everyone wrote a book in lockdown. Everyone's work life, including your agents, got harder in lockdown, and everyone is adjusting to the new normal. But if you are already signed with that agent, you have the right to nudge a bit harder than if you were just waiting for them to read your requested pages. If they're not your agent yet and they have your requested full manuscript, you want to nudge about every 3 months. Jay mentions in the chat, I had an agent keep a manuscript an entire year in 2014. If they are your agent, you can nudge about every 6 to 8 weeks, but the very best nudge of all is, hey, I just published this new piece, wanted you to see it, let me know when you've got comments for me on the manuscript. And so that's why it's really great to keep submitting your short work, your essays, your short stories into the world, even while you are putting out a book. It is okay to ask for a phone call. It is okay to ask for an expected return date. If your book feels like you're done and the only feedback you need is from your agent, you want to keep nudging. If your book feels not done yet, go ahead and seek other feedback. If you are itching to work on your book and you have a beta reader that you trust, go ahead and get feedback, and then tell your agent, I'm sending out the manuscript to a couple of people. I'll get back to you with any comments I hear and check them by you. Or I've hired a professional beta reader, or I'm hiring a developmental editor to do a light read, because your agent feeling a little bit guilty about not getting back to you will help them light a fire under their butts and get back to you. Remember always, you cannot base the hopes for your career on one person. We have all been talked into the idea that the agent is the silver bullet who locks and loads you into the publishing pipeline and fires you out of the success cannon. And these days, it is not quite working that way as much as it used to. So make sure that you feel that you have a relationship with your agent where you can say, hey, I really want to move forward on this book. Are you still my agent if necessary? Ashley, you want to add anything to that?
I do. 2 things. So first off, when you are trying to nudge an agent who you are querying, who you are trying to lure in for an offer of representation, my 2 biggest pieces of advice are watch the news or be the news. Like Allison said, if you publish a new piece, if you get an award, if you have something go viral, even if it's a video related to your topic or a hot essay, then you can say, hey, this has changed in my bio, in my sphere of influence. I thought you would like to know. Also, if there is a big story in the news that relates to your nonfiction or fiction project, you can pull that and say, look, this story broke yesterday. All the major news outlets picked it up. There are conversations about it on morning shows now. This is a topic of interest for people. Second, if you are truly waiting, ask yourself, what would you do if you were no longer waiting? What would you do if you already had that book deal, if the agent already had it on submission, if you were launching it next week, or if you already sold 1,000 copies or 5,000 copies? Trying to figure out what to do with our time when we're in transition and when we're in limbo, I think, is one of the biggest struggles being self-employed. And when we can figure out how to kind of hack our tendencies during that time to get ourselves moving forward, then we can open up new opportunities for creativity along the way.
Do not stop working just because you haven't heard back from somebody else. Never, ever, ever let other people slow you down. So we are going to talk today about comp authors and about what those are, what that means, and how you use your comp authors and your content buckets across social media to bond with the people you admire, to line them up to be the people who one day blurb your book, and to figure out, what do your readers want to know about? What are they reading? What are they loving? Are they looking for the answer to their questions about their marriage? Are they desperate for another vampire novel set in a boarding school? You know, what do they really want? And I want to turn it over to Ashley, but I also want to just give you guys a quick little opening story that I think you will all be able to spot what's wrong with this picture. I was working with an author who is self-publishing and doing a really nice job at it. He knew he needed a lot of guidance, and he's been getting a lot of guidance. And about 7 or 8 months ago, I sent him a list of all the books that were his comp books. And I said, hey, go ahead and review all of these books in a positive way. If you don't like the book, don't review it. Post the review on Amazon, copy paste the review to Goodreads, purchase all of the books that you can afford to purchase, and follow all of these authors on social media. Start doing that. Do 2 or 3 a week. Start doing it now. And as you buy these books, look at what else Amazon suggests and get those books too and review those authors. And about 8 months later, as the book starts to go to the printer and he is ready for blurbs, and he says, well, who are we going to get to blurb my book? And I said, well, give me the list of authors you have reviewed, and I will see if I am connected to any of them and can get your email requesting a blurb from them to them, because they're more likely to respond if it comes from a person. And he said, oh, I haven't been doing those reviews. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to help you if you have not already expressed to these authors months and months ago, before you wanted something from them, that you liked, respected, and honored their work, that you were invested in their work. And that's why you would like them to kind of maybe be a little bit invested in yours. So you got to start making those deposits in the bank of goodwill, good and early. And Ashley is going to tell us all about the foundation that you need for that.
Mm-hmm. As Allison said, getting to know your comp authors, your comp accounts, is just smart business. It is, you would never start a business. I hope none of us would ever start a business in a new industry without researching what the heck is going on in that industry right now. Okay, to do that, we have to understand the landscape. And when we do that, we start building connections with those people. We start building connections with other writers, and we start building connections with the audience that we hope will be our audience someday. Okay, so here we are. This is my book cover here on the left. My book design happened so quickly that sometimes I can't even believe I have a picture of myself topless on a book out in the world. But a big part of getting comfortable on social media and building your platform is getting over the hurdle of, why would anyone want to see, hear, read, watch what I have to say? So part of the way we answer that is by identifying our comp accounts. Okay, so comp accounts are the writers who are reaching the people we want to reach. All right, they may be the same as your comparative or competitive titles in your query letter or proposal. They may be different. Now, here's the thing that I want to tell everybody if you're trying to figure out Okay, this is my work in progress. I'm not quite sure what other books are like that. Ask yourself who is reading other books that would then read your book. Okay, ask yourself who is going to read this. And we don't have to do like a complete ideal customer archetype, but we just have to have an idea of like the general communities of people who we think are going to be drawn. And sometimes we may be surprised. So many men are reading my book. I have to be honest, I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know couples would read it together. No clue.
One shortcut to figuring out who are your comp authors is imagine that it is your publication day. Your book is being displayed on the front table of the bookstore, and it is surrounded by other books that the bookseller thinks because your book is about to be a popular bestseller, your book will help buoy up these other books that are on the table. What other books are on the table? What does the bookseller think? If you love Mubina's book, you're gonna love these other books. And those are some of your comp authors.
So when we identify our comp authors, then we ask ourselves, how are they connecting with people? How? Okay, Roxane Gay, amazing on Twitter, right? Amazing on Twitter. Now she's opened up other opportunities to support writers through her magazine on Medium. Athena Dixon, she is a kick-ass conference presenter. All right, she's everywhere all the time, building her relationships live in person with people at conferences. All right, Nora McInerney has the Terrible Thanks for Asking podcast about being widowed. Okay, so she's a really big supporter in the grief community. And then whenever she comes out with a book, it sells really well because she's so connected with that podcast audience. And Allison says in the chat, Roxane, it also connects by being a strong personality. If you've ever been clapped back by Roxane, you know, yes, absolutely. And people love that. They go right to her because they want to see what kind of brave snarkiness or just truth telling did she dish out today. All right, Lauren Huff, also on Twitter, similar to Roxane Gay. I would say Lauren digs herself holes more often than Roxane Gay digs herself holes, but Lauren's people are there to like pull her out because that's part of it. They think that her putting her foot in her mouth or being absolutely obnoxious is charming. So she has really embraced that for the audience that appreciates that. Tara Schuster wrote Buy Yourself the Fucking Lilies, and she has a Facebook group and newsletter where she really connects with her audience. And then Gia Tolentino is a columnist. A lot of us know her from Trick Mirror, but she was a columnist for a long time before that. And a lot of her essays that are in the book were essays that were previously published. So taking a look at how they connect. Now, and then asking yourself, what are people loving? So for my comp authors, I follow them everywhere and put notifications on.
You want to subscribe to their newsletter. You want to check their website every now and then. You want to make sure you are following them on every social media they use that you also use. And you want to be reading their books and reviewing them positively online. If you can't give them 4 or 5 stars, don't review their book at all.
Yep. And if there are speaking engagements, there are fewer of them right now, but the year before my book came out, I saw Glennon Doyle speak in person 5 times. I flew to places in the country to see her speak and to see who else she was speaking with and just to get a feel for how her kind of memoir writing then translates to speaking on the stage. Asking yourself, what do people really love about the account? I don't know if it's just part of my coaching background, but when I watch Glennon Doyle speak, I am critiquing her in my head like, ooh, if she said that this way, it would have landed better. Because you can feel the audience energy when something is live. On Twitter, in a Facebook newsletter, you can see how people are responding. Newsletters a little trickier, but usually with the follow-up newsletters or if they're doing any Q&As, you can really see that. I follow a couple of agents on Substack who do really great newsletters. And then ask yourself, what questions are not being answered? What we want to start to identify are the gaps in what this writer, creator, speaker is offering to their audience, and what things do you notice that the audience needs that aren't being fulfilled. If you're noticing things that are lacking, it's probably because you possess those skills. All right. And ask yourself, if you could rewrite the caption, how would you rewrite it? If you could rewrite that newsletter, how would you make it more succinct? How would you make it more captivating? If you could just take over the comment section and answer everything yourself instead of from that person, please do not do this. We're not there to steal the show, but ask yourself how you would do it differently, because those are going to give you indicators to how you genuinely, authentically would connect with people if you had an audience this size and with this level of engagement.
And Natasha asks a really great question. What about fiction, when the author who you're following might have a completely different novel each time? Go by genre? Sort of. You want to go by, how are they relating to their audience? Do you see that they are primarily talking to people on Instagram? Do you see that what they really talk about a lot is their research, or what they really talk about a lot is, I've been thinking about this character, or what they really talk about a lot is, this is what my writing space was like today, or couldn't write today, had to go out and play with my kids. Look at how they relate to their audience and how their audience relates back to them.
And in the chat here, Louise just asked, is it common to see a lot of questions, or is it just usually just like a fan party, like we love you, love fest? Listen, this is what I pay the most attention to. Not when people get on there and argue with them. I look for people who come on and say, thank you so much for that. That makes me feel less alone. And I also struggle with X, Y, and Z. And then I see if those comp accounts can answer questions about X, Y, and Z, or those things are just the things that pop out at me. So one of my comp authors was Liz Gilbert, because I write commercial memoir. She talks about spirituality, searching for meaning, following your joy, and really rejecting that tortured artist stereotype. We don't have to martyr ourselves to our creative process. Also, Glennon Doyle, who I just mentioned, her two biggest things that she wrote about, and she's been telling the same story for 10 years. Yes, that is true, Allison. She really has. And so when I see her speak a lot of times, I can say like, oh, she's telling that story better now because I know how she used to tell it. Okay. So it just gives me an idea in live speaking how we have several drafts of how we're going to tell a story as well. Okay. So embracing your messy, beautiful life. She was the one who said, yeah, life is brutal and beautiful at the same time. It's brutal. And listening to your inner voice. So the gaps that I really noticed here, remember Liz Gilbert, this is what she talks about. She does not give any advice on staying married. So she would give advice on like having compassion for yourself and really like living your truth. And someone's like, what if I want to live my truth and cohabitate with this other person for years? Do you have anything for me? And she was kind of like, meh, I don't. And she also does not give advice on how to avoid martyring yourself for your children, right? Because Liz doesn't have children. Glennon, similar, love Glennon. Some people would love to embrace like, you know, the chaos of being human, but they want to have clean damn floors. Okay. So
just going to say, while we're doing Writer's Bridge right now, my husband is cleaning my bathroom.
And Manny brought me a lunch up here today. I was like, on Writer's Bridge days, I need you to just bring me food when you make your own food. So getting your kids to clean the house. Right? I know for myself, my anxiety will be high unless my space is orderly. And if I'm running around my house trying to make the whole space orderly, the resentment for the other people who are not cleaning really rises. Some people may be like, I love caring for my home and family. I'm not one of those people. It doesn't bring me a whole lot of joy unless other people are sweating alongside me. Also, Glennon has always been really clear about the fact that sex has been really awkward in her relationships. Always a weird power play, never able to really relax and enjoy it. So for 2 years, I had notifications on Instagram for these two authors because Instagram is my favorite platform. So the fact that, you know, that's why I zeroed in on them and why I zeroed in here. And it's not a surprise that my most popular videos are how to keep monogamy hot, how I get my kids to clean the house, and before you get a divorce. Okay. And I never set out like, these are the things. It wasn't until I was a few videos in on each of these that I was like, oh, and these are actually the things that I've noticed on my comp account. It wasn't like I realized kind of in retrospect, that's why I want to offer this to you now, and why Allison and I talk about comp accounts and content buckets. Because then when my book came out, I realized, oh, I couldn't have set my audience up better for this if I had planned it, because I was just being like, these are the things that I care about and I love to talk about. And oh, by the way, these are also the themes in my book. So comp author study, and I do consider this writing adjacent work. I do consider this work. I do consider this research. This is not mindless scrolling. If I want a mindless scroll, that is a different period of time, or, you know, it usually distracts me from the work I'm trying to do with researching comp authors. Two really important things: helps you decipher what your audience needs and what they're hungry for and what they're not getting. And it reminds us that not every story has been told. Not everyone. We have all, I used to walk into bookstores and want to just huddle in a corner because I was like, there are so many books. Why in the world would anybody publish another book? There are so many books here, and I just know some of them are going to get returned and not even sold. And then one day I stood in the Strand bookstore in New York City, and I had this period of time, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to leave here. Even if it takes me 2 hours, 3 hours, I'm not going to leave here until I see bookstores differently. About hour 2.5, I actually saw the people. I had never noticed customers in bookstores. I had just noticed it is filled with books, and a lot of these aren't going to sell. So remember, there are people who are hungry for stories, even though they've already read stories, even though the shelves may be full behind them, and hungry for your unique way of telling them.
Mubina points out in the chat that a lot of her comp authors are men who tend not to be as expressive on social media. Maybe they even have somebody else managing their accounts. And I think this also ties into Natasha's thing as well about writing fiction. Very often you might be looking for, where does the community who reads those people hang out, rather than where does the writer themselves hang out. So if it's fiction, you can also look for, what kind of large topics is this author wrestling with? So for example, Michael Crichton, author of Jurassic Park, has also wrestled with like medical ethics and with doing business in Japan. I guarantee you there are Reddit forums talking about each and every one of those topics and a bunch of subgenres. So it can be really useful just to go and listen to the readers and listen to what the readers are talking about. We had a question actually a while back. Orla asked, I realize this may sound pretentious. I started writing because I wasn't finding the books I wanted to read. So I love your suggestion to follow and talk with similar writers, but I'm not really sure who that would be. I suppose just follow people in women's fiction generally and hope to eventually find my people. You'll also run into this when you're querying and you're trying to find good comps for your query. One of the things is to broaden your definition of what is a book like mine. So for example, if you are writing a beautiful book about East Asian food, you don't necessarily need somebody who writes about East Asian food. Maybe you need somebody who writes about Asia, or maybe you need somebody who writes about food as comfort or food as a way to connect to the world. And then you can look at the second half of that equation and go with, okay, what about just people who write about adventure or people who write about ways to comfort yourself? And you can get in touch with their audiences as well. You might also look at literaturemap.com, which will help you know stuff more in the market. You can also go into Amazon, type in the search words that you would use to look for your book. So for example, Mubina might write novel, techno thriller, contemporary setting, and see what pops up. This is a great opportunity. We talked last week about getting to know your local libraries and getting to know your local indie bookstores. It is a great conversation starter to walk into your bookstore or your library and say, hey, I am looking for books like, and then describe your book, because chances are good they know some stuff like that.
Background noise. So Allison's pulling up Literature Map, which is a very, very cool feature.
I am going to share screen with you guys really quick just to show you what it works like, because it's kind of neat. Somebody type the name of one of your comp authors into the chat, and then we will
pull them
go up from there. Gina Frangello, fantastic. Sometimes they turn up, sometimes they don't. Lauren Huff. Okay, so let's go with Gina and we'll see if Gina pops up. Gina Frangello. Gina pops up. She doesn't have a ton of people around her because she's not like massive. She's massive in the memoir world, but not necessarily massive everywhere else. Let us try another one. Let's try Lauren Huff, who I think is selling slightly more books. Lauren Huff.
Yeah.
And let's see. They don't know her.
And then, okay, so now everybody, this is something I have to tell you because I have a subscription to NPD BookScan. What we love if we are literary memoir fans. Here we go. Danny Shapiro, who's a bit more commercial and has had more books out, has more people who are showing up here.
So the closer the person is to Danny's name, the more Literature Map thinks they are like Danny. The further out, the less they think it's like. Then if you click on one of these other ones, like say you're going to click on Cheryl Strayed, it gives you Cheryl Strayed's map. And then as you start moving out, you can look for, this is reminding me of somebody I had forgotten might be a good comp for me, or who's this person, and look them up and find out, hey, is this a person who would be a good comp for me? Is this a person who I'd like to know more about their work? Allison says it's 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but for literature. It is exactly that. And it's free and it's really easy to use. And I highly recommend it. The other thing I want to show you guys while I have the browser window open is
Allison, if I could jump into this. So
please do.
Okay, so this is for finding comp accounts. Make a list of these people, because then when you are doing Facebook ads or Amazon ads for your wonderful book that's about to launch, you are going to want to pull out this list and say, okay, who is still relevant to me on this list? Because this is how you are going to target fans of these people to then serve up an ad for your book.
And I have typed the link in again. It is, and I've typed it with an equals instead. It is literature-map.com, and it is delightful. I want to show you one more way to find comp authors while I've got this open. I'm just going to go to my Amazon page because I know where it is. Look, I have a book out. It's delightful. You may notice when you look for any book, it's going to be listed in categories, and it's going to show you, okay, my book is in editing, writing, reference. So then I'm going to click on editing, writing, reference, and I'm going to see what else is listed in that category. And I can see, are any of these my comps? Maybe I then go over to the copy editor's handbook. I click on that. Now from here, I scroll down and I go, where are these categories? Editing, writing, reference I looked at, grammar, reference I did not. Let me find a fiction book so that we can take a look at fiction. Hang on a second, only child, there we go. It's a book I actually worked on that I highly recommend, it's lovely. And so this is a novel. It's a novel told from a child's point of view, and it is going to be in fiction. So let's go with mothers and children fiction. Let's say that you're writing a book that deals with a mother and a child. I'm going to click on that category and go, oh, Leanne Moriarty, probably a comp for me if I'm writing about mothers and children. Susan Walter, haven't heard of her, but she's got 3,900 reviews, so she's selling books and I should know about her. Another Leanne Moriarty, Laura Dave, look at that, 41,000 reviews. I totally want to follow that author if I'm writing about mothers and daughters. And this lets you kind of navigate through. Then I might click on Kristen Hanna's book. She's got 13,000 reviews. Clearly she's, reasonably selling books. And I'm going to scroll down to her categories and go, oh, historical World War II fiction. Am I writing anything to do with that? And then you can look category by category and start finding who your comp authors are and where you're going to find them. Yeah, and Louise points out the Lit Map site skews to bigger sellers. Absolutely. Go ahead, Ashley.
Absolutely. It definitely skews commercial. That's why using Amazon or following these people on social media, because they don't have very many followers. They may even follow you back. Getting in the literary world, it is tighter and smaller and just like a little bit more closed in. There are readers who aren't writers. But the sales aren't in the millions or multiple 7 figures for those books, which is totally fine. You don't need to sell in 7 figures for a publisher to be happy that they're doing business with you.
Nina asks a great question. What if your comps are either too big or too small? We want to distinguish between comp authors that you're going to use to model your social media on and to start interacting with readers, and comps, which are books that go into your query or your proposal. In a fiction query, comps help establish the tone and theme of your book if you put them up front, or they help establish the audience for your book if you put them later in the query. So if I say my book is, Ashley, give me 2 fiction books. My book is Gone Girl plus
An American Marriage.
Plus an American Marriage. My book is Gone Girl plus an American Marriage. If I say that up front, it lets the agent who's reading my query know, oh, this is going to be darkly psychological, but there's also going to be realism in here, and there's probably a racial element in there somewhere where race is of great concern to the story. If I put that at the end of my query, I say this will appeal to readers of Gone Girl and Tayari Jones and American Marriage. Then the agent goes, oh, okay, so this is for people who like their books to move quick and be deep, but they also like literary writing. They also like more sophisticated writing. With nonfiction, whether that's memoir, narrative nonfiction, food writing, your comps are going to be in your proposal. You'll also mention some of them in your query, but you'll actually thoroughly examine 3 to 5 books in your proposal, where you talk about, this is what this book covers, this is what this book misses, and how my book fills that gap. When you are doing query or proposal comps, the books need to be not great big giant million sellers, not older than 3 years, and 3 years is pushing it. And ideally, you want those books to be debuts. You want them to be the author's first project out of the gate, because it shows this kind of work sells rather than this author sells. Comp authors who you're going to use as models for communicating with audience, who you're going to watch their audience and interact with it to see what their audience cares about, what they want to read. They can be a million bajillion sellers. They can be anything you want. They don't have to have published recently. They just need to be active in a place where you can observe them interacting and act with them. The other thing I would say about your comps as well is, yeah, so Nina points out, not dead. Victoria points out there's a great podcast called The Shit No One Tells You About Writing. It's a really lovely podcast where 2 agents talk about a query, and they also talk about, first pages. And Victoria points out the agents suggest telling how your book relates to the comps if they are different, like if your comps are commercial and your book is literary. The other fine distinction here is when you are pitching. If you are pitching, particularly verbally, it can be worth it to use a great big blockbuster comp, because then you know what you're talking about and the other person knows what you're talking about. I spoke with a person recently where her pitch comps are, it's Wild meets Into Thin Air, but told by a Jewish feminist. And we all kind of know what that book is going to be about. It's a woman, it's an adventure, there's some Judaism in there, there's some feminism in there, and it's got something to do with Mount Everest, because Into Thin Air is people dying on Mount Everest. It's something about a woman traveling on her own and expanding her own horizons. So verbal pitch, famous, okay. Query pitch, proposal pitch, those comps need to be legit in your ballpark. They need to be recent. They need to be not the world's greatest bestsellers. Comp authors, go as big as you like. They just need to be people who you can interact with their readers. Watch for the questions their readers ask and see if you are able to answer those questions. So for example, if I saw, so I do writing advice. If I saw somebody on Danny Shapiro's post saying, hey, can you answer this incredibly specific question about my memoir that Danny does not have time to offer? Answer. Danny is busy making a podcast, writing another book, being Danny Shapiro. However, when I see, oh, hey, this person's interested in this really specific question, I can then write an Instagram post about that. And in the comments, I can go, hey, person who commented on Danny's, I'm tagging you in this because I think it might come close to answering the question you asked Danny the other day. So I'm making a direct connection, as well as going, oh, hey, this is material that I can use that I didn't have to think very hard about, and that I know is a question that my audience has, because I want my audience to be Danny Shapiro's audience.
I'm going to pause you right there, and I'm going to just break down those parts that you just said, Allison, because there was so much brilliance right there. Okay. Allison notices a gap. That's been in her mind or on a list of, oh, I'm going to write a piece about that. So then she notices that gap on Danny's feed, someone asking a question that Danny's not going to answer. Allison could do a post about that. Listen, Allison just took note of the person who asked that specific question on Danny's feed. On Allison's own feed, in a comment, she can put in at that handle. Here is a post that relates to that question you asked yesterday on Danny's feed or last week. Okay, I have just commented back on comp accounts. Some of you have heard this story. One comment on a Liz Gilbert post gave me 1,600 new website visitors and new Instagram profile visitors in one day, and 160 new followers. And this is back when I would grow by 500 followers in a year. And this was in 24 hours. I said something and Liz said, that's fascinating, Ashley. Would you elaborate? Oh, golly gee, Liz, I wonder if I feel comfortable doing that. And then I just gave a little bit more feedback, and so many moms came. Actually, it was about marriage. It was about marriage and motherhood, because I said I went from martyr mom to selfish mom, and finally my family is thriving. And people were like, tell me more about that. Then I had people coming into my DMs for weeks saying, hey, I found you through that Liz Gilbert post, and now I've gone back and I've read everything on your website. A lot of those people ended up being beta readers. They ended up being some of my first pre-order customers, just because I added to the conversation without stealing the show over on a comp author's post. And then the comp author was like, thank you, please tell us more. So there are a lot of ways that you can do this.
And there's a real knack to it. You guys may have noticed that I sell my shit all the time. I always have something on sale. Either it's a retreat, or it's my book, or it's the next course I'm going to teach. And the giant daily battle for me is, how can I write a blog for brevity, or a really helpful Facebook post, or a really helpful Instagram post that genuinely gives my readers something they need, and then at the very end says, oh, hey, and if you want more of this, I'm also selling this thing. It's a real knack to slide into the comments in your comp author's comments and not look like you're grandstanding. Like Ashley said, you don't want to steal the show. You want to make your own show that complements theirs, that fills in a gap that they're missing. Or because most of our comp authors are famous, they don't have time to answer every question that someone wants to ask them. We are mostly at a point in our writing career where we still have time to answer individual questions. And that is a way to bond with our readers, whether that's a question from someone who is your eventual reader, or someone who is your fellow writer who will later evangelize for your book. Ashley, do you want to add anything else to that?
There are just some great comments here. Nina says it's about being generous, yet at the right time and in the right amount. It's about, yes, it's about being generous, and it's about being genuine. If you are in those comments every day, noticing what's going on and adding what you can just with generosity, there's going to be a time that someone's going to notice your generosity and go, wait, how can we hear more from you? Because you have just been there. Nobody wants to be your customer. People just want to be your friend, like Allison says so often. When
Meredith
you are
points
there,
out she remembers learning give, and then ask. And we say that a lot. We say 10 gives for every ask. Just keep giving as much as you can, because then you become present in people's lives in a way that is not obnoxious, in the way that buy my book gets to be obnoxious. I want to, before we do some networking time, I want to briefly touch on my own experience here, which is that I don't know how much you guys have noticed my social media since my book came out. It is almost entirely reposts. It is almost entirely other people saying, gosh, I loved this book. Here is this picture with this book. I cultivated those people by spending 10 years dishing out writing advice for free and helping other people. 2 years ago, when I knew I was going to have a book coming out, I started hardcore Amazon reviewing and Goodreads reviewing every author who announced in Binders Full of Platforms or Binders Full of Memoirists or any of the other writing groups I was in. Hey, I have a book coming out. If I could afford to buy the book, I bought it. If I couldn't afford to buy it, I'd get it at the library, or I would look around and see if a friend of mine had it and I could borrow it. And so consequently, when I put my book out, I was kind of surprised by the number of people who were willing to post on their Facebook, on their Instagram, hey, look, here's a picture of me with the book. I got it. I liked it. It was lovely. You all should buy it, which then lets me repost. And it's more powerful for somebody else to say, hey, buy Allison's book, than it is for me to say, yo, you should buy my book. I wrote a book. Look, it's a book. There's a book, and what I'm doing as well, so as not to overwhelm my audience, is I'm making sure that I'm still posting about other stuff. I am saving all of these posts. I don't repost more than one a day, even though I'm seeing more than one a day. I'm now saving them and spreading them out over the next couple of months, where I will be able to go into my saved posts and go, oh, hey, let me go ahead and repost Sky. Sky said a really cool thing about my book last month. I was so overwhelmed. I'm really happy to share it with you guys. And so it really helps to enlist your friends to do your promotion for you.
And I'm just typing in the chat that this was a good tactic with reviews. I don't read my Amazon reviews. I don't look at them, but every morning, Manny sends me screenshots. He goes to his desk earlier than me in the morning. And one of his first things when he's firing up all his screens is he goes on Amazon and he takes screenshots of great reviews and sends them to me. And I share them in a special album. So then when I'm thinking, oh, I haven't talked about my book for a while on my Instagram stories, because I think it might have been a week or two since I've even mentioned my book there. Oh, a way I could do that is share this review I've never shared and put a cute sticker and a thank you, and then the link to purchase the book. So keeping track, like just saving these things. This is also a thing on comp accounts. You can take screenshots of their tweets and save them to a specific album, and just keep their name and profile picture on there. If you ever want to post that on Instagram, Twitter, wherever you want to post it, always tag them so they get credit. Even just putting a tweet on a solid color background is a gorgeous quote card that then people aesthetically would like to add to their feed or somewhere else. So there are lots of ways you can do that when you're doing this comp author research. I even took photos, screenshots of really, really funny comments on Glennon Doyle's posts. I think it was Glennon said, we thought 2020 was lost, and then Taylor Swift gave us folklore. And somebody commented, yeah, Taylor said, hold my cats. This is hilarious to me because I love Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift is weirdly in love with all of her cats. So that comment, Taylor Swift said, hold my cats, I made that into a quote card then that was shared over and over and over and over, and I became good friends with the person who had made that comment. So taking screenshots of things that you like and then putting them, here's the key, putting them in a specific album on your phone,
so that you can find them again. I don't know about you guys, but I have 26,000 photos on my phone. So we are going to come back in a minute and tell you guys our absolute top tips for cozying up to your comp authors, getting them to notice you, getting them to feel like they are invested in your success. Welcome back from breakout room, folks. We are so glad to have you back. We're all kind of piling back in. We hope you had a nice time meeting each other and saying hello. If you didn't get a chance to exchange your social media with your other people, feel free to post it in the chat. And we want to let you know what's going on next meeting. We are going to talk monetization. We're going to talk about, if you're pouring all this time and energy into building your platform, beyond selling your book, how do you get your platform itself to make money? How do you start generating income from the platform you're building on your way to using that platform to support your book. Yes, thank you, Allison Lane. Dollar bills, absolutely. Wow, I sounded incredibly suburban when I said that. Ashley, give us your top tip for the end of the day.
Okay, my top tip is when you are looking at comp accounts, it can be really easy to get audience envy. Really, really easy, especially if you have notifications on and then you go to that account and damn it, they already have 12,000 views and you know that they just posted it a minute ago. This is what I want you to remember. Through watching comp accounts and trying out our support and our storytelling, we are going to hone what we want to say and how we want to say it. All right. You need to love the audience you have in order for that audience to grow. Allison always says, you can't love a crowd, you can only love an individual. So being responsive to their comments, being responsive to DMs, you can decide how intimate you want to get in DMs. You can decide to never respond to DMs, but however you are going to interact with your people, do it. Offer them support. Okay, it is that genuine giving when you only have a small crowd of people around you saying, I want it, that then is going to root you into why you want to do this and your certainty of what you have to offer. In order to become a great writer, it takes practice. In order to connect with an audience, most of it's online. So, and that's where I connect the best with my audience. In order to connect with an audience, it's going to take time. All right. So we just do that good work and show up every single day. So then you have that foundation for when the next thing opens or expands and you get to welcome more people into that community that you have already loved.
I want to give you one specific tip for how you are going to use these book reviews that you are doing for other authors, including your comp authors. Every time you review a book, whether that's for a friend author, whether that's for a client, if you review your client's books, whether that's for an author you admire who you maybe have never talked to in life, you want to do a couple things with that. You want to post that review to Amazon, copy paste it to Goodreads, then paste a quote in your social media, either with an Instagram photo of you holding the book or the book in a charming location next to your potted plants or whatever. When you post it on social media, you want to tag the author, the publisher, the author's agent, and your favorite independent bookstore where you hopefully bought that book. All of those people are people who have followers themselves. They may retweet or repost your post because it gives them useful content that is complementary to them, that lets them put something out that's not, they didn't have to work for it. All they had to do was repost it. And you'll pull some of their followers because your stuff will get shown to people who follow the people you tag. And so that can be just a really nice way to do well by doing good, as they say. The more you can spread the wealth, the more attention it gives you for your generosity rather than for your buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. So give as much as you possibly can. And publishers may not respond to you. Agents may not respond to you. It still helps your stuff show up in the algorithm a little bit better. Mm-hmm. We hope that you will come back in 2 weeks for monetization. And we will always love to see you on Facebook and on social media. You will get the recording later this week. And happy writing, everybody. Have a beautiful day. Feel free to unmute yourselves for a lovely goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, Ashley. Bye, Ashley.
Bye.